What if Julius Caesar was never assassinated? History is filled with turning points, moments so critical that had they gone differently, the world as we know it could be unrecognizable. One of these pivotal moments was the assassination of Julius Caesar on March 15th, 44 BCE, famously known as the Ides of March. A group of disgruntled senators sought to end Caesar's growing power, but what if they had failed? What if Julius Caesar had survived? How might Rome have evolved under his continued rule, and how could such a change have reshaped the trajectory of world history? Let's dive into this fascinating what-if scenario. To understand the magnitude of this alternate history, we must first grasp where Caesar stood at the time of his assassination. Julius Caesar was no ordinary man. He was Rome's military genius, political visionary, and a reformer who commanded immense popularity among the citizenry. Having conquered Gaul, defeated rivals like Pompey the Great in a brutal civil war, and declared himself dictator perpetuo, dictator for life, Caesar was at the height of his power. Yet it was this very power that made him a target. The Roman Senate, a body steeped in tradition and resistant to concentrated authority, grew restless. Many feared Caesar's ambitions would lead to the end of the Republic and the rise of tyranny. On that fateful day, their conspiracy to eliminate him came to fruition, or so history tells us. But let's imagine a different outcome, a failed assassination attempt. What would Rome have looked like under a victorious and unchallenged Julius Caesar? If Julius Caesar had escaped death on the Ides of March, his immediate focus would likely have been the consolidation of power. Having already been declared dictator for life, Caesar might have taken further steps to ensure his authority remained unshakable. Would he have abolished the Senate altogether, or transformed it into a rubber stamp for his policies? It's plausible that Caesar, known for his political pragmatism, might have sought to maintain the appearance of republican governance while effectively holding monarchical power. Similar to how Augustus would later shape the empire, Caesar may have attempted to mask his absolute authority under familiar Roman institutions. But would his survival have prevented the chaos that ensued after his death? Without the power vacuum left behind by his assassination, the civil wars that splintered Rome could have been avoided. Caesar was a unifying figure for the military and the plebeians. His leadership might have provided Rome with enough stability to mend the fractures within its society. However, his dominance also raises questions. How far would his ambition have gone? Would his unchecked power have ultimately isolated him from the people and elites, leading to rebellion? Had he lived, Julius Caesar undoubtedly had plans to shape Rome's future in profound ways. He had already introduced reforms to centralize authority, redistribute land, and aid the economically disadvantaged. These actions gained him considerable support among the lower classes, but alienated the aristocracy. His survival might have led to even more sweeping reforms. Would we have seen a stronger and more cohesive empire under his rule, one that could have expanded its territories even further? Caesar's military brilliance suggests that he could have launched additional campaigns beyond the Mediterranean, perhaps stabilizing Rome's borders and expanding its influence across Europe, the Middle East, or even deeper into Africa. Yet his reign might have also amplified tensions among the ruling classes. With more power concentrated in Caesar's hands, it's reasonable to assume that resentment among the aristocracy would have boiled over. Could Julius Caesar have maintained control over an empire so vast, or would his ambitions have sparked new rebellions, potentially undoing everything he built? These questions highlight the precarious balance of authority in any empire. One of the most significant questions in this alternate history is how Caesar would have handled the issue of succession. In reality, his assassination paved the way for his adopted heir, Octavian, later known as Augustus, to rise to power. But would Octavian have ever come to power had Caesar lived? Caesar had no biological son, and while it's likely that Octavian would have remained his favored heir, history might have unfolded differently. Perhaps Caesar would have sought to implement reforms that institutionalized succession, creating a clearer path for future leaders of Rome. Such measures could have provided the empire with much-needed stability and avoided the cycles of civil war often triggered by unclear succession. Alternatively, Caesar's survival might have fostered a volatile environment within his inner circle. With no precedent for imperial succession and egos clashing for power, Rome could have seen rivalries spiral out of control, even under Caesar's rule. Looking beyond Caesar's immediate reign, let's ask, could his leadership have strengthened Rome enough to extend its lifespan as an empire? The decline of Rome centuries later was caused by a variety of factors, including political corruption, overexpansion, and external invasions. However, Caesar's reforms might have addressed some of these challenges early on. For instance, his economic and land redistribution policies might have quelled social unrest for a longer period. His vision of a centralized, unified empire could have reduced regional divisions. Perhaps under Caesar's continued leadership, Rome might have avoided the cycles of instability that plagued its later years. On the other hand, Caesar's survival does not guarantee Rome's salvation. The challenges of maintaining such a vast and diverse empire, stretched thin by its size and complexity, would have tested even the most capable ruler. Would Caesar's centralization of power and focus on expansion have ultimately weakened the foundations of the empire in the long run? The ripple effects of Caesar's survival would almost certainly extend beyond the Roman Empire, altering the trajectory of world history. A stronger, longer-lasting Rome might have profoundly shaped the development of Western civilization. From the spread of governance models to cultural exchange and technological innovation, a Rome under Caesar's uninterrupted rule could have set a different course for human progress. Could the Renaissance or Enlightenment have happened earlier, under a continuously dominant Rome? Would a more unified empire have accelerated scientific advancements, or would Caesar's unchecked power have suppressed opposition and creativity? The possibilities are endless. And what about Rome's influence on governance? The legacy of Roman law and republican ideals influenced modern democracies, but an uninterrupted dictatorship under Caesar might have changed how we view leadership and governance today. Would a world ruled by a stronger, centralized Roman state look more authoritarian or progressive? While the what-if scenario of Caesar's survival is exciting, it's essential to remain realistic. Even with Caesar's unparalleled genius, the structural problems of Rome, a reliance on slave labor, an economy prone to instability, and a sprawling, difficult-to-govern empire, would have posed immense challenges. Caesar's survival might have delayed Rome's eventual decline, but the underlying issues were systemic. Caesar himself was not without flaws. His ambitious personality and disdain for traditional checks on his power had already alienated many. It's possible that, even had he survived the Ides of March, Caesar's centralization of power might have created new enemies and led to future attempts on his life. Julius Caesar's assassination altered the course of history, but imagining a world where he survived opens up endless possibilities. Would an uninterrupted Caesar have ushered in an age of unparalleled Roman dominance, or destabilized the empire with his unchecked ambition? Could his reforms have prolonged the lifespan of the Roman Empire, or would they have simply delayed its inevitable collapse? Now we turn the question over to you. What do you think? Would history and the world have been better or worse if Caesar had survived? Share your perspective in the comments below. We'd love to hear your theories on this intriguing alternate timeline. If you enjoyed exploring this fascinating what-if scenario, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the notification bell to stay tuned for more thought-provoking explorations of alternate history. Let's rethink the past together.